Oh, dang. Okay, so here we are once again with another DC Multiverse Collector Edition unboxing from Mcfarlane Toys. And this one is Green Lantern, or is it? Says Green Lantern, Green Lanterns, but this is not Green Lantern. Now, this is a Platinum Edition figure. This is a variant on a Green Lantern. This is Simon Baz, is the character that this is based off of. But this figure is not Simon Baz. It's not Green Lantern. It's not Simon Baz. This is Solomon Baz, and he is Power Ring. So he's kind of the Green Lantern of Earth 3, but his ring didn't come from the Guardians. It's a ring that's possessed by a demon named Volthoom, I believe is the character's. That's how I pronounce it anyway. I could be pronouncing it wrong because I'm a little dyslexic. It might be Vothloom, I don't know. But I always said Volthoom because I think that sounds cool. Anyway, for those of you who come on to my channel to hear me talk about the history of the character and go in depth into, what led the character up to the action figure you see before you. I'm afraid to tell you you're not going to get that on this episode because he's a new 52 character, and I've kind of stopped reading DC Comics at the new 52. I did come back for a little bit at Rebirth, and those are some of my favorite Superman comics ever. But for the most part, they lost me, and then they wound up losing me again when Brian Michael Bendis came on to Superman. So that makes sense. But yeah, so Simon Baz was a character that was created after the New 52, and he was a Green Lantern, and he's a Muslim, which is cool because there's not like a whole lot of Muslim superheroes. There probably should be more. Uh, but I don't know if they really thought it through very well because he's a Green Lantern that carries a gun and has a ski mask, and that has some unfortunate connotations. So I've never been a big fan of Simon Baz, is what I'm saying. He could be a great character for all I know, because like I said, I haven't really read a whole lot of comics featuring him. So if you're a fan of Simon Baz, I'm not trying to talk smack about him. When I say I'm not a big fan, I'm not trying to say I dislike the character. I'm just saying, like, I'm pretty ignorant of the character, is what I'm saying. I don't know a whole lot about him. It could be if I read some comics with him, I might wind up really liking the character. It could be if I read the comic with him, I might wind up thinking the character is stupid. I don't know. But you know, I guess we'll find out. So I got some spam caller trying to call me while I'm doing a live stream. What are you doing? Ah, now it's I don't even want open. Am I still filming? It looks like I'm still filming. I still see myself on the stream yard. So yeah, I'm whatever. Okay, so let's go ahead and open them up. Oh, I did want to say on the back the artwork is really nice. I don't know who did the artwork on here, but it's a really good piece, and it does have kind of a Neil Adams sort of flavor to it, which is about the nicest thing that I could say about any comic book artist. I'm pretty sure it's not Neil Adams. It just kind of reminds me of his style. So let's go ahead and open him up. This is figure number 26 for those of you who are counting. But yeah, so I almost didn't buy this figure because it's a character that, I'm not really that familiar with anyway. But then when I took a closer look at him, I noticed that's not the Green Lantern emblem on there. That's Power Ring. And I knew that I already had Ultraman and I already had Owlman, both of those that I was waiting to open up. So I might as well get a third member for my crime syndicate. And that's this guy. So happy to have him in the collection. Uh, and I think they did a different version of Power Ring at some other point, but I'd never seen that one in the stores. Maybe I might try to buy him one of these days. I'm gonna get the trading card out first, and even though it's not on a separate bubble, it's on a separate bubble from the figure stand, I was able to get it out pretty easily. So we got that same nice piece of artwork on the trading card. That's what the back looks like. And it reads, by the way, this is going to be a bio of Simon Baz since it's a platinum edition figure. But like I said, this is not Simon Baz. This is Solomon Baz, who I think is Simon Baz's brother, which makes sense because Owlman is Bruce Wayne's brother. So I guess having Solomon be Simon's brother makes sense. Anyway, it reads, Green Lantern, Green Lanterns, you don't say. Data file, real name Simon Baz. As a Muslim growing up in Michigan, Simon Baz was often the target of bigotry. After he lost a job at an automotive plant, Simon started stealing cars to make ends meet. One night he stole a van, discovered a ticking bomb inside the vehicle. After a high-speed chase, he was taken into custody as a suspected terrorist. Amid harsh interrogation by federal agents, a power ring sought Simon Baz out, conferring on him the abilities and responsibilities of Green Lantern. As a reluctant superhero, Baz considered the selection a mistake, but he sought to do his best to help people. Well, good for him. So yeah, I gotta say, having read that bio, I do kind of identify with that character a little bit because I kind of feel like if I was in the position of Simon Baz and I got a Green Lantern ring dropped into my lap like that, I would certainly think it was a mistake. So that's something where, like, I was reading that, I'm like, yeah, I can feel that, and I know exactly where he's coming from on that one. So let's go ahead and get this guy opened up. So even though this is not Green Lantern, well, because this is not Green Lantern, I actually can talk a little bit about the history of Power Ring because I do know something about that. So we discussed the history of the crime syndicate a little bit in the Owlman episode, and so if you watched that, you're up to speed, and if you're not, why haven't you watched that? Go ahead and watch that once you're done with this episode. But Power Ring, like I mentioned before, he was the counterpart of Green Lantern, and rather than being a member of a Green Lantern Corps, he was a little actually more like Alan Scott, in that his power ring was mystical, and it was possessed by a demon called Volthoom, and his power battery got kind of bent up in the packaging. But I don't think Power Ring has a power battery. He's called Power Ring after all, not Green Lantern, so we'll just set that aside for now. And he comes with two alternate faces. One that's got like a little bit of a smirk on him. I think I might use this face because it does seem like it'd be like an evil sort of smirk. And then this one's still got a little bit of a smirk on there, but not showing the teeth. So he's got two kind of smirky faces, and that's cool. And then he's got three ring constructs. He does not come with a gun, which Simon Baz was famously the Green Lantern that carried a gun, like I said, which I thought was kind of silly for a Green Lantern to have a gun, but whatever. All right, so we have this big metal fist. Makes us think of the Infinity Gauntlet. This is one that obviously is supposed to fit over the character's hand because you can see the opening there. So it's not just supposed to be like how Green Lantern makes a fist that comes out of his ring. This is actually supposed to be something like a big metal glove. And then we got this one here, which is a hammer. So there's that. And I think they missed an opportunity because they could have put like the Green Lantern emblem at the ends of the hammer. I think that would have been really cool, but they did not. And then this one, and this also looks like it goes onto his hand, and that's a drill. So he can drill into stuff. Now let's go ahead and get Power Ring himself out of here. So the original version of Power Ring, as you might suspect, in the Silver Age of comics, when Hal Jordan was Green Lantern, looks an awful lot like Hal Jordan. I don't remember what that character's real name would be, or in fact, if it was ever revealed what his real name is. You know, he was pretty much intended to be just kind of a one and done character in the Silver Age, but they did wind up bringing him back in the Bronze Age, and he died during Crisis on Infinite Earths, along with the rest of the crime syndicate when Earth 3 was destroyed. And they actually do show Earth 3 being destroyed. It wasn't just merged in with the other universes. They are DED dead. Now, later on, in the post-Crisis universe, they introduced a new version of the Crime Syndicate. And in this version, they were from the antimatter universe of Quard. And they did look very much like how the original Silver Age ones, but since they were Quardians, they had like big bulging eyes with little white pupils in them, like how the Weaponers of Quard look. So I don't know how many times those guys appeared, but I only remember seeing them once. And then when Grant Morrison took over JLA, I said he. And I know some of you are going to be out there being like, actually, Grant Morrison prefers they, them pronouns. No, actually, he doesn't. I was watching an interview with Grant Morrison, and he said that was something that got kind of blown out of proportion. He really does not care what pronouns you use. He's fine with whatever. She's fine with whatever. They're fine with whatever, which is kind of what I figured. Like Grant Morrison does not seem like the kind of person that would get hung up on something like that. You know what I mean? And plus, Grant Morrison is, a magician, a sorcerer. And if you might remember, if you're like me and you read Arkham Asylum and you read all the stuff in the back, the actual script for Arkham Asylum and the notes and everything, he was talking in that about how in ancient times, magicians and shamans would oftentimes be more androgynous type people that could be considered like, I guess in the modern day be considered to be like drag queens or transgender or non-binary or whatever. So I guess it makes sense. Lone Dragon is here, and it says his real name is Bob Maluga Luga. Well, that's a mouthful. You certainly know Hal Jordan as far as that goes. So, but I'm going to take your word for that. I'm going to Bob Malgo. Then we're just going to say that. But yeah. Then there was when Grant Morrison did their version, whatever you want to say. When she did her version of his crime syndicate, their version of Green Lantern, just throw all of them in there. Their version of Power Ring was based more on Kyle Rayner, and he had like a bleached blonde buzz cut, and he still had the crab mask, but it was more made to look like sunglasses. But still, it was a ring that was possessed by an entity, Volthoom. So that much in common. Kurt Busiek came on to Justice League for a brief run later on, and his run was mostly focused on the Crime Syndicate. And at that time, John Stewart was the main Green Lantern, so he introduced a brand new version of Power Ring that was more based on John Stewart. Lone Dragon says, I don't know who any of these people are. Well, that's okay, because the figure that I'm opening up is a platinum edition of Simon Baz, and I don't really know who Simon Baz is. So, we're all kind of in the same boat with that one. Maybe you know who Simon Baz is. Do you know who Simon Baz is? I don't know. I haven't read a whole lot of comics with him in there. But like I said, technically, since this is Power Ring, this is not Simon Baz. This is Solomon Baz, unless he stole his alternate universe's brother's costume for a little bit, and then I guess this could be Simon in the outfit. Now, Simon Baz had some tattoos on his arms, but this guy doesn't seem to have that. He's got like this kind of weird black marbling in his arms, like the plastic is marbled, and it doesn't seem to be like any kind of like distinct tattoos. But you can see he does have a different costume from what Simon has in the comics, because he's not Simon Baz. He's not Green Lantern. He's Power Ring. So yeah, I guess it makes sense. This is probably during Forever Evil that this character came about, I would guess. It makes sense if Simon Baz is your Green Lantern at the time. You do a Power Ring version of Simon Baz. So no, not the same one from The Daily Show. Lone Dragon says, except Jon Stewart, did he become Green Lantern before or after he took over the Daily Show? Completely different Jon Stewart. This is Jon Stewart with an H, not Jon Stewart, just Jon. So otherwise, they race swap Jon Stewart at some point. And I'm gonna say since the comic book character Jon Stewart came out in the 1970s, and I believe that the comedian Jon Stewart, I believe that's a pseudonym. Let's look it up. I'm kind of interested to. I'm curious about that. So we're gonna look that up. Where was here we go. Jon space Stewart. You know, American comedian and actor. I've seen him act in a couple of movies. I know he was in Big Daddy, and I know he was in Death to Smoochy, which he was very proud of. That's actually a really good movie, though. I really like Death to Smoochy. It just did not do well at the box office, and it did not do well critically. But yeah, his real name is Jonathan Stewart. That's spelled Stuart Leibowitz. So yeah, he's named after the comic book character, I'm gonna say, because even though his middle name is Stewart, it's not spelt the same. He spelt it the same as the comic book character. I don't know whether he did that on purpose, but you're stuck with it now. You're named after a comic book character, just like Nicolas Cage is named after Luke Cage. Bobby Wallet is here, and he says, I felt bad for him in the movie The Faculty. That's right, he was in The Faculty. I forgot he was in The Faculty. So that's another movie that he was in that I've seen. So I've seen him in at least 3 movies. I've probably seen him in more, but those are just like the first ones that came to mind. But yeah, it's been a while since I've seen The Faculty. I really watched that one again. It's Robert Rodriguez. Like he usually does good movies. But Lone Dragon says, have you ever seen the back of a $20 bill on weed? Yeah. I've never been on weed, so I guess not. And XCC Plot is here, and he says, hi, man. Well, hi right back at you. Welcome to the show. So yeah. So that was the main reason I bought this guy, was so he can be with the rest of my crime syndicate and be my version of Power Ring. Like, even though I'm not really familiar with the character, I like the design for Power Ring. I really like the design. I think he fits in pretty well. So let's go ahead and talk about the articulation. And before we talk about the articulation, I will address that, yes, this is the same standard buck that we see on a lot of these figures. We've seen this this buck since the Blue Beetle 2-pack, the Blue Beetle Booster Gold 2-pack. Been used on a lot of figures. I usually keep the Riddler over here, one of my favorite uses of this body. Love this Riddler figure. He's one of my favorites. But yeah, so you can see they do use this body a lot. It's the same body. So and the Flash, since I happen to have the Flash over here, he's another one that uses that body. Oh, and one other guy that I have over here, Captain Atom. He used that body. I think he probably used more of that body than either the Flash or Riddler, because he's got the same trunks also. So it doesn't have a belt. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the articulation. Power Ring can look up about that far, look down about that far, tilt its head kind of quizzically from side to side, or rotate the head all the way around. Of course, the arms rotate all the way around the shoulders, and he's got that Mcfarlane butterfly joint, so it can wiggle around a little bit, move back about that far, move forward about that far, up about that far, down about that far. Of course, his arms raise up to the sides about that far, so that's a pretty decent range of motion. He's got bicep swivel, bicep rotates all the way around. He's got double jointed elbows. That's about the range of motion you get at the elbows. He's got the cool Mcfarlane wrist articulation, which rotates all the way around where the wrist meets the forearm and where the forearm meets the hand. And it's got a hinge on there, so you can really move that around any which way you want to. This is great wrist articulation, some of the best wrist articulation you're ever going to see on an action figure. And it's really good to have this wrist articulation on a Green Lantern figure, because you really want to get some good articulation to that ring-slinging hand. Speaking of the hands, one of the hands is a solid fist, and it does have a power ring sculpted onto it. And it's painted to have fingerless gloves but it's not sculpted that way. It's just painted that way. On the other hand, this hand over here is sculpted to have fingerless gloves. It does have like a little bit of texture there where the gloves end and the fingers begin. And even though he does not come with a gun, his hand is sculpted into a trigger finger. So if you want to give him a gun, you can, but you're going to have to either dig through your extra GI Joe parts or get something from Action Force, or Mcfarlane sells their own weapons packs, or even 3D print something if you really want to. So he's got the cool Mcfarlane torso articulation, so you can get him in all kinds of dramatic poses that way. Of course, the torso rotates all the way around where it meets the abs, where the ribs meet the abs, and where the abs meet the waist. There we go. He can kick up about that far, so pretty decent range of motion. He does have that little bit of wobble like Mcfarlane figures tend to have there. Got double jointed knees. That's about the range of motion you get at the knees. No boot cut, even though I'm pretty sure these are two separate pieces of plastic. They could have given us a boot cut, but it doesn't really matter because he's got that great Mcfarlane ankle articulation, which rotates all the way around where the ankle meets the shin and where the ankle meets the foot. So he's got a great range of motion there. Foot points down about that far, foot points up about that far, and then he's got toe articulation just to show off. While I'm not incredibly familiar with the character of Simon Baz, and I'm not incredibly familiar with, probably even a little less familiar with his Earth 3 counterpart, Solomon Baz, Power Ring, I do think that this is a pretty impressive figure, and it's going to look really cool standing next to Owlman and Power Man. So I'm really glad I picked this guy up. Definitely worth picking up. I know that Mcfarlane did a Superwoman figure at some point. I'm hopefully going to try to get her one day, but I think she's kind of expensive. Not like super expensive, but just kind of expensive. And I don't think they ever did Johnny Quick. And who knows if they'll ever get around to doing Johnny Quick at this point. But, maybe I could just like get the Page Puncher's Flash figure. He looks kind of vaguely like Johnny Quick anyway. So pretty cool figure. I'm pretty happy with how he turned out. Real quick before we're finished, let's go ahead and address those accessories. So we can put the power battery into his hand. There we go. There's that. And he's also got this hammer, which we can again put into his hand. So he's got at least one reconstruct that he can hold in his hand, which is good because then he can dual wield. And I like to have my characters having or storing as many of their accessories as possible. And let's see, we got the drill here, so let's see if we can get that onto his hand. There we go. So he's about to do some construction. And then might as well get the Infinity Gauntlet onto him and see what that looks like on him. And that's pretty cool. I like the look of that. I think we just found our thumbnail. So I'm going to take his face off because we haven't talked about that yet. And that's what he looks like with a face, very creepy. So let's put one of the other faces on there. And since I wanted to have that evil smirk, that evil grin, I kind of wonder if maybe that's a face expression that they picked because they knew that they were going to do a platinum edition that was Power Ring. I feel like that's fitting for him. So that's the one I'm gonna leave on there. And I should say that Simon's face mask, it does work really well as far as switching the facial expressions go. Remember how I was complaining about with Guy Gardner, how like the ears and the face weren't the same skin color, and that caused some problems as far as that goes. Well, you don't have to worry about that with Simon Baz because the whole faceplate is a different color from the rest of the mask, and they did paint a little bit of the black on there. It's really more of a really dark gray, but since they were able to match that color a lot better, it's not really so much of a problem. But mostly what you're seeing is the eye mask part of it, which I believe on Simon is green. On this guy, it's white. But yeah, it does work a lot better on a masked character, I think, than it does on a character where like their whole face is, a different color from their ears, which is just strange. That's a weird, weird tan line. Uh, Bobby Wald says swapping faces just like the movie Face Off. Well, kinda. Except for I don't know if you can how easily you can swap other characters' faces, but I do happen to have some other faces around here. So let's go ahead and try some. We got a Mr. Terrific face. So let's see if that'll go on there. No, it's not going to go on because it's not the right shape. So that's not going to work, unfortunately. It would be neat if you could switch faces from other characters on there. Here's Lightning Lad's face. Let's see if his will go on there. Nope, nope, it won't fit on there either. I kind of figured maybe those would Lightning Lad would fit better on a Mr. Terrific just because they have unmasked faces and they've both got hairlines, but they've even got different hairlines, so I don't even know if that would work. Lightning Lad seems like he has a slightly sharper hairline. But yeah, honestly, I'd probably rather they just did swappable heads. I don't think it's really saving them that much money. Really, I don't think. Oh, we got some more comments. MHD is here. Hi, MHD. Always good to see you. And he says, hello, I've got this one ordered. Well, cool. I hope you enjoy it when you get it. What do you think about Mcfarlane losing the DC license? Well, I have complicated feelings about that. Let's go ahead and talk about that. I've talked about this on this channel before, and I likely will talk about it again. Probably what's going to happen is next year when they actually do switch over the license. I'm probably going to do a couple of special videos. I'm thinking about where we do a post mortem where we talk about the whole Mcfarlane line, and then do another video where we talk about the future with Mattel. And of course, I'm sad to see this line come to a close. I've really enjoyed this line. I'm sad to see Superpowers come to a close. I've really enjoyed that line. I'm sad to see the what used to be the Batman 66 line, which has now evolved into a Super Friends line. I'm sad to see that come to a close, and I'm worried that I'm not going to get all the characters that I would want out of that Superpowers line, because I know we've got at least one more wave coming, so I know we're going to get Superman, Flash, Cheetah, Captain Cold, the evil version of Superman, and what was the other? There was one other figure that was in there. I want to say it was a villain. Let's see, Captain Cold and Flash and Superman and Cheetah. I don't remember what the other figure was, but why does it say couldn't slow? Oh, because this thing. So I'm gonna cut that off. Like in that, yeah, the bus that couldn't slow. Exactly where I'm drawing a blank like that. Do you think Mattel will do a good job? Yeah, I think Mattel will do a good job. I'll say that. Lone Dragon says, Buona Beast, you can always have more Buona Beast. He's a character that I'm kind of hoping they might sneak into Multiverse at some point, actually. But he couldn't be in that Super Friends line because he wasn't in Super Friends. He could be in Superpowers. I don't see any reason why he couldn't be. But anyway, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I would still like to see from Mcfarlane, and I don't know if they got time to do everything that I would want to see out of them. I'm kind of curious as to what Mattel's going to do, because there's a number of options that they could do. I mean, well, for example, Mcfarlane Multiverse is more in scale with the current Masterverse figures than the old DC Universe Mattel figures would be. So, maybe they'll do something more in scale with Masterverse when they do DC. Maybe they will go back to the DC Universe format. I'm kind of hoping though they'll do the 7-inch format because I want to see Mattel do something different. We've seen them do DC Universe classics, and they've done like a whole lot of characters in that. There's probably still more characters they could do, and I think that people would be happy to see them do more DC Universe classics. But I'd kind of rather see them, try to do some new stuff. I think I would like to see Mattel do superpowers. I think that they could do a good, probably even a better job than Mcfarlane has done, potentially. I mean, if you remember back when Mattel was doing Justice League Unlimited, like if they could do something like that with superpowers, I think that would be really cool. I figured out the best combo animal for Buona Beast to make, says Lone Dragon. Well, don't keep us in suspense. There we go. Honey Mountain Badger Goat. Yeah, that's pretty OP. But yeah, like I described it before as being kind of like if you're a fan of Doctor Who, and like say you were a big fan of like David Tennant, and you're sad to see David Tennant go, but also this new guy's coming in, Matt Smith, and you're wondering if he's going to do a good. You're hoping he's going to do a good job, so you're looking forward to seeing what Matt Smith's going to do when he becomes Doctor Who. But will he ever be as good as David Tennant was? And then you get towards the end of Matt Smith, and you're like, oh well, like I'm gonna miss Matt Smith, but this Peter Capaldi guy, it's gonna be interesting to see what he does with Doctor Who. And you go through that period where you get used to the new guy, and then you miss him at the end. And like I know Doctor Who's kind of in a place right now where people seem to be kind of disenchanted with that franchise. But I'm talking about like back at its prime. But when I was a kid, the first Doctor Who I ever saw was Tom Baker, and he's still my absolute favorite Doctor Who. Doctor Why though, I don't know how, when. Ooh, I watched Spaceballs the other day. I love that movie. So, but yeah, so that's pretty much it for Solomon Baz Power Ring, not Simon. We got to do one more thing. We forgot almost to take the we got to take the figure stand off. Might as well talk about that some. So matte black figure stand, silver DC logo embossed onto it, like we're used to from these collector edition figures. No trading card stand. Apparently, that's something we're never gonna get again. Doctor Who the hell cares? Says Lone Dragon. Well, at this point, it seems like it. At this point, it seems like the hell cares. I haven't even seen any of the ones with Chudy Gatwa on there, and I kind of lost interest when not because of Jodie Whittaker. I got nothing against her. I thought she was okay, but it was that whole timeless child storyline that was what killed it for me. Solomon Grundy want pants too. Solomon Grundy, that's another one I really would have liked to seen from Superpowers. So that's another one where, like, I was really hoping to see Solomon Grundy in Superpowers. It looks like that the newest wave of Superpowers, not the Superman movie ones, but the real Superpowers with the comic book characters. The one with the high collar Nightwing and Cyborg and Deadman, like that one is probably going to be hard to find. And I'm going to be really pissed off if for a second time I don't get a Superpowers Cyborg because they put him in at the end of the line and makes him a really rare figure. I need to have a Superpowers Cyborg. I will never forgive you, Todd, if I don't get my Superpowers Cyborg. But yeah, so I'm of mixed feelings with that. Lone Dragon says, when's them Batman Returns figures coming? I'd buy that for $1. I think they're going to be a little more expensive than that, unfortunately. But yeah, they should be coming sometime within the next year. I don't remember exactly when they're getting them, but that's a line that I'm looking forward to, because I'm a huge fan. Not only just Batman's my favorite character in general, but specifically that Michael Keaton, Tim Burton version of Batman. I've got a lot of nostalgic affection for, and Michelle Pfeiffer, definitely one of my crushes when I was at a delicate age. You know what I mean? You know exactly what I mean. I had her poster on my wall. Oh yeah. Yeah, the other kids at the time would have, like, Pamela Anderson or Carmen Electra. I had Catwoman. Yeah. Anyway, that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to be back on the next episode with probably going to open up the Filmation New Adventures of Batman Riddler, because I'm going to use that to segue into the superpowers figures that, unless I happen to find something else that's cool, that's really cool, that I just can't resist opening. That's my plan. So uh pending whether or not I find something else cool while in between. And she says, "Thanks. Have a good day, Alan." Oh, thanks to you. I hope you have a good day as well. Thanks to everybody who stopped by, Bobby Wald and Lone Dragon, and uh, what was the other one? There was somebody else. XXC Plot. Thanks to you for stopping by. In case you're any of you is still hanging around, always good to see you folks. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure that you like and subscribe and all the fun you stuff down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this figure and the character of Simon Baz that the standard version is based off of, and the character of Solomon Baz that this Platinum Edition is based off of. And if you are a fan of those characters, again, I'm sorry I didn't really have a whole lot to say about them, but I'm just not that familiar with them. But this is a good opportunity for you if you want to talk about those characters in the comments, if you want to educate me and convince me why maybe I should seek out some Simon Baz comics and get to know that character. Remember, you already got an in, because I already said I could identify with him a little bit when he said that he didn't feel like he was worthy of that Green Lantern ring. That's exactly how I would be if I got a Green Lantern ring. I would have that sort of imposter syndrome thing going on. But, that's just me. Let me know what you think in the comments. We'll be back on the next episode with something else to open up, obviously. But next week is when I'm getting into those Super Friends figures. So I'm really excited about those. If you want to make sure you don't miss those, like, subscribe, etc. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.